All right, well, I'm going to give you permission to take a 15-minute power nap. You can watch me tomorrow on YouTube, and then we can get to Jeremy. So, borrowing from St. John the Beloved and the 13th century poet Rumi, our lamps are different, but the light is the same. The light flows toward us from all people and all things. Our lamps are different, but the light is the same. One matter, one energy, one light. In him was the power of life, and this power was conveyed into the cosmos as the light in mankind and everything. His light shines in the chaos, but those in darkness have not been able to grasp it. Our lamps are different, but the light is the same. Every person born on this earth has sacrificed some level of progression, risking all they had previously attained to come to a fallen world in an attempt to gain more light and truth and to further progress. Situated as we are, it is up to us and no one else to choose whether we will progress or regress. The nature of this world affords each of us ample opportunities to taste the bitter that we may come to know, to prize the good, to learn to discern for ourselves between the light of truth and the darkness of error. The glory of God is intelligence, or in other words, light and truth. The Lord has warned that they that will harden their hearts, to them is given the lesser portion of the word. In our fallen world, mankind is prone to wander and to stray. Joseph Smith taught that so great are the frailties and imperfections of mankind that unless we come to understand and believe the correct character, perfections, and attributes of God, the faith necessary unto life and salvation could not exist. For doubt would take the place of faith, and those who know their weakness and liability to sin would be in constant doubt of salvation. Those who do not harden their hearts have reason to hope. For the Lord has promised that to them is given the greater portion of the word, until they know the mysteries of God in full. The greatest mystery of godliness that we can discover is who God is. Each one of us can become a subject matter expert in coming to know the Lord for ourselves. As we do, the byproduct is that our faith will increase by degrees until we no longer have faith, but an actual knowledge that He exists. My family's journey toward the fullness of the gospel has encompassed the study and research of a number of religious topics, which we believe will help us come to know and understand the Lord. This also has included studying the lives and teachings of those who have been in God's presence and received words of eternal life from Him while in the flesh. We desire to know and give heed to whatever true messengers teach and reveal about the mysteries of godliness. Two of those individuals are Joseph and Hyrum Smith. In a prophecy delivered through Joseph of Egypt, the Lord mentioned Joseph Smith Jr. 22 times. We should be much more circumspect about how we judge, criticize, and evaluate the life and teachings of a man whom the Lord trusted, loved, and called friend. My book, Joseph Smith Revealed, A Faithful Telling, came about because I had a burning desire to know God, specifically what He really thinks about His daughters. I also felt compelled to determine whether Joseph Smith was a true prophet or a fallen one. This led me into a deep dive on the issue of polygamy. I felt that in order to truly come to a full understanding of this topic, I needed to open myself up to source material from a multitude of perspectives. My most recent book, Hyrum Smith, The Prophet Unsung, was born out of my desire to know and learn from the man who followed Joseph's teachings and example until he too had received a promise of eternal life. As I have researched Hyrum, I have found that very little truth has been written, preserved, or even understood regarding the man whom the Lord loved because of the integrity of his heart, placed first in his priesthood, and to whom the Lord made a promise that his name would be held in honorable remembrance from generation to generation. As I have researched Joseph and Hyrum Smith, I have found that many LDS Church publications and writings use second and third-hand accounts to justify their interpolations and unvirtuous narratives. In many cases, as I have dug further, I have discovered that original sources prove the exact opposite of the LDS Church's claims, and that too often mankind's philosophies, interpretations, agendas, and traditions color source material. It is human nature to see what we want to see, to believe what someone in authority tells us to accept as truth. The Lord has warned us that many leaders of religious institutions are blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. The false traditions of our fathers, the cunning lies of the adversary, and a gospel of carnal security keep many slumbering peacefully in the dark. Accepted academics, pedigreed theologians, and those placed in high positions of authority hold themselves up to be the only acceptable dispensers of truth to whom we should look. But God has ordained truth to come to us without respect to persons. Whatever truths may exist, his true followers seek after these things and find they are freely given. As such, we are all authorized by the Lord to seek for light and truth. Joseph taught that mankind has a mind susceptible of improvement and capable of instruction, as well as a faculty which may be enlarged in proportion to the heed and diligence given to the light communicated from heaven to the intellect. The Lord has promised us, those who have been blinded by falsehoods, I can teach them to see. And for those claiming they see clearly, I will leave them in their blindness. We do not need worldly acclaim, education, or credentials to seek after and discover truth. We only need a desire and willingness to sacrifice what will be required. In fact, we might be in a better position to overcome the false traditions of our fathers than those who are ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Coming to know the Lord begins with seeking, asking, and knocking. God will speak to anyone. He will answer any earnest seeker. The first vision came about because of Joseph Smith's prayer. Searching the mysteries of godliness can be a scary prospect. This is partly because while the truth will set you free, first it will tick you off. It is often painful to awaken from a peaceful slumber into the light of day. Sacrifice has no meaning if there is no consequence. Yet no matter the obstacles we are confronted with, each of us can overcome our blindness until we eventually stand in the full light of day. As we do so, we will inevitably uncover another great mystery, who we are. We will discover what is hidden in the deep recesses of our hearts, the beams in our eyes, the weaknesses of our flesh, and the sins and errors that keep us from piercing the veil and unlocking the record of heaven that dwells within each of us. Joseph Smith taught that the nearer man approaches perfection, the clearer are his views and the greater his enjoyments, till he has overcome the evils of his life and lost every desire for sin, and like the ancients arrives at that point of faith where he is wrapped in the power and glory of his Maker and is caught up to dwell with him. The Lord has promised that the day will come when his people shall no more teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they shall all know him. The path to discovering the great mysteries of godliness begins with listening, accepting, understanding, and living the first principles and ordinances of the gospel. Knowledge of the mysteries is obtained only through obedience to God. By obedience to what the Lord commands, we can qualify to receive greater light and truth. But consider that this is a station to which no man ever arrived in a moment. He must have been instructed in the government and laws of that kingdom by proper degrees until his mind is capable in some measure of comprehending the propriety, justice, equality, and consistency of the same. When you climb a ladder, Joseph taught, you must begin at the bottom and ascend step by step until you arrive at the top. And so it is with the principles of the gospel. You must begin with the first and go on until you learn all the principles of exaltation. But it will be a great while after you have passed through the veil before you have learned them all. It is not all to be comprehended in this world. It will be a great work to learn your salvation and exaltation even beyond the grave. Since the days of Adam, the Lord has always sought to reestablish people of covenant among the living, and therefore has desired that we should love one another, not begrudgingly, but as brothers and sisters indeed, that he may establish his covenant and provide them with light and truth. Jacob's great wrestle with God put his hip out of joint. Nevertheless, he prevailed, and in the end received covenants, blessings, promises, and a new name from the Lord. So here we are tonight, people who have woken up to a portion of light and truth. Some of us may be awake but still lying in bed. Others of us may have risen out of bed but are stumbling around trying to find the switch to fully turn on the light. As we stumble around searching for truth, bumping into each other, remember that only God has all truth. So let us be kind to each other and never give up on the wrestle to come to know the Lord. Our lamps are different, but the light is the same.